Yes, Councillor Ebbs.
Thank you. To follow through with some of my colleagues' points, it is. I think it's. I think I'd be correct in saying this, that planning committee does have responsibility to be consistent in its decision making, especially with previous planning applications which have been granted. And although I accept the comment which 11 dwellings per hectare is quite a sparse development, I understand that planning committee, well, if the adjacent planning application has been granted, then I think, at least from my perspective, we should at least be consistent in our demands. And I think if the adjacent one is 11, then the consistency should apply regarding density for the adjacent applications. At least when applications go to appeal, consistency in decision making is a factor taken into account by the inspector.
I'm not seeing any other indications, but do you want to comment on that? And then I'm going to speak.
Thank you. So in terms of Councillor Rowley's comments, clearly decisions have been made in Bayston Hill that it was okay for that discrepancy to occur, because we have got one development already of 29 next to a housing development of 11 dwellings. So a decision has been taken in the past that that is okay. And so in terms of consistency, you might argue that it is consistent to have different pockets of development with different densities. And if you look at any towns and settlements, you will find that. You will find low density, high density. That's how towns develop and grow. I think the concern, though, I think the important matter with looking at density is what the harm is, not the numbers. To concentrate on the numbers too much, but what is the harm here? Is there any harm between that existing number 2 being next to the one behind it at 11? What is the harm? And if members were to want to try to formulate a refusal reason on density, we'll be asking them to say, what is the harm here? What a new development, a new estate, what is the harm of it being next to a lower density area when there are other areas adjacent and at the edge of this settlement which are of the same or even higher density?
Thank you. I'll come in for next because I have myself listed and I'll come to it. And were you indicating as well? Thank you. I think from my point of view, I haven't heard an argument that suggests that there isn't a case for sustainable development in this area. And in fact, that was sort of established by the previous local plan, which has now been withdrawn, but which is highly likely to therefore be in any subsequent local plan. Therefore, it comes down to, as committee rightly seems to have discussed in August when I wasn't present, to some aspects of the nature of this particular development. I think my problem is that if we were to turn this down, given the state of play with our land supply, the chances are we would actually see something considerably worse come forward. That the development that we see here in terms of the density levels, but also in terms of the open space, in terms of the energy efficiency of the properties and other aspects of it, and the contributions that are being made in terms of SIL. My fear is that if we turn this down, we would end up with a considerably worse application, not just here, but in other places as well, as our land supply figure would be deteriorating even worse. So on that basis, at the moment, I'm minded to be supporting this application. I'll go to Councillor Potter and then I'll go to Councillor Evans. Councillor Dartnell. Councillor Evans.
Chair, Rosemary Dartnell, Colin Sutton. I just wanted to ask about the affordable housing percentage, which is favourable in terms of the whole application. We have many thousands of people homeless in Shropshire, and affordable housing is a major concern for us all, I think. I want to ask how certain that affordable housing percentage is if this planning application were to be approved. Would it be retained, or would there be? Is there a possibility to renegotiate that beyond approval?
Thank you. Matters relating to the affordable housing would one part of the Section 106 agreement, and it be written into the 106 agreement, which will be a legal document legally requiring that level of affordable housing provision. And in that way, it wouldn't be that would be on the basis we're making a decision on the basis of that 5%. If the applicants want to change that, they will then need to seek a change to the application.
Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I think we're all under some pressure to accommodate new developments, but I'm really quite concerned that we're setting a bit of a dangerous precedent by allowing such high impact housing developments all at once. It's difficult to see how this can possibly comply with NPPF high quality living conditions and well-designed, beautiful, safe places, as we're instructed to do. Especially, just finish with this, we're looking at 29 houses per hectare here. What we would look at the houses in Yew Tree Drive. Yeah, it would be better off up there, I believe, Beddoe Close and Grove Lane. Which we're changing the aspect of that area, and I just think there's such a big infrastructure. There's room in Basin Hill for more development, and like the councillor said earlier on, I don't think there's any great objection to development in Basin Hill, but to suddenly jump into a big development like this, I think personally would be a mistake. That's thank you.
Any of the councillors wish to speak? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Yes.
One thing I would like to be reminded of by officers, part of the planning process nowadays is the efficient use of land, in which case there is the option, or not the option, there is the possibility that if a very low density development is put in nowadays, that it won't be deemed as efficient, and therefore the higher density would be given a decision in preference should inspectors come in. Am I correct in thinking that? I just wanted you to just confirm, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I've made some comments about this in 4.2.2 and 4.2.3 of the report in terms of the policy background, and obviously we're making decisions today rather than previously. A development of 11 dwellings per hectare would be considered to be very low density, but in today's climate, a development of 29 not be. In terms of the NPPF, I've pointed out that paragraph 130 states that where there is an existing or an anticipated shortage of land for meeting identified housing needs, it is especially important that planning policies and decisions avoid homes being built at low densities, and that local planning authorities should refuse applications which they consider fail to make efficient use of land. This comes down back also to paragraph 11D of the NPPF as well, in terms of situations where we don't have a 5-year housing land supply. And one of the matters that we need to pay specific regard to is whether applications provide an effective use of, make an effective use of land. An officer's opinion is that this would do, compared to a development, for example, of a significantly lower development, which would be considered to be a low density and not in accordance with NPPF in the current climate.
Thank you. I think it was Councillor Rowley and then Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to the density again, I think what I'd like to put it is it was me who proposed that we deferred this application at the last meeting. As far as I'm concerned, that proposal is still on the table. I don't think this has been enough reduction of houses, 6 houses reduction on quite a big site. it's when you look at that map there, the section of housing to the northwest of the side seems to be acceptable with enough green space around it. There's that large lump of concrete in the middle that concerns me, and that's what concerned me at the last meeting. It's just not in keeping with anything around it. And I think what I'd like to see is to see this application deferred again. I don't know if it's possible, like to be advised on it, to possibly see some open lines of communication with the developer and the local parish council to try and work together and come up with a feasible solution for this plotland.
Thank you. I will come to officers just on that point, just to check where we are in terms of decision-making processes.
The committee is obviously able to defer the application again should they wish to. It's not really for, whilst we take comments on applications and it is up for the developer to take those on board, we can't say that that's what they need to go away and do. We can ask them to go away and look at things like density again and highlight areas of concern, but we can't, we're almost asking them to go away and redesign the scheme with local council, local parish council and local residents, which we can't ask them to do.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you very much. I had concerns about the density before. I still don't like this. I'd like to have seen, I think there's still 8 too many houses there probably. But I'm also pragmatic in that I think looking at the information that's been presented around other bits of density in the in Bayston Hill, from an appeal point of view, it would probably be approved at appeal. It's just my sort of gut instinct in that, but I'm still minded of the opinion that I think not enough has been done in that opportunity since August to address the concerns, particularly in the block at the bottom of the development, which is a shame. I think had a little more been done, we'd have been in a bit of a different situation. But I am pragmatic that I think, you know, with the information that's presented to us, that this would probably be approved ultimately, whichever route we take.
Thank you. I'm going to take, I've got 2 more, and then I'm going to press for some proposals.
Thank you. I'm conscientious, given previous appeals which the council has undergone, that arguments made at appeal was the lack of consultation with the community, which has ultimately led to poor decision making. That was one of the arguments put forward in one of more recent appeals in Tilstock, and I'm mindful that because the parish council have not necessarily been involved in the process, I appreciate where officers stand. That does, however, lead to poor applications, and especially regarding that point of density, I think that could have been fleshed out a bit more. I think also the council, we're sort of inclined to sort of encourage people to do active travel, and but also to have walkable distances to shops. And I am mindful that it's around a mile away to the nearest shop, which I appreciate for some households. For younger households, it's not too much of a problem. However, I am mindful that for older families on an uphill gradient, that could be a bit of a challenge, especially when we're encouraging access for older generations moving to the county.
Thank you. Mr. Pfeiffer.
Adam Pfeiffer and Monkton Shubre. I just want to clarify one thing, that it's a single point access to that proposed site from A49, I'm right?
From Little Road, not from the A49.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. Just on the map, it's okay. But anyway, I agree with Councillor Epping's point about lack of consultation. That was my second point.
In terms of pre-application consultation, the applicant carried out pre-application, sought pre-application advice from the council, and also they've submitted a statement of community engagement as well, which was explained in the original committee report. and that included pre-application discussions with selected stakeholders, including National Highways and the Local Highways Authority, publicity with residents, and consultation with the parish council. There is an expectation for the large development that does occur, and that has happened. And clearly, there has been, significant amount of local opposition, but it's not. But we have to recognise that pre-application process. But I think it's just worth just reiterating that this was a form of draft allocation as well. At the application at Market Drayton at the A53 and a previous one at Mitternote Road as well in Shrewsbury, where they were formal draft allocations, and members of the North Committee resolved to grant planning permission.
I'm going to take one more speaker, and then I'm going to be looking for some proposals.
One of the areas which really stood out for me was access to it. It is more or less directly opposite someone else's sort of driveway track. That issue still has not been addressed. So that really does concern me. And the overall height of properties, I think, could be detrimental to the area as well. Height can be seen speakers as being grade 3 land. Was that grade 3 A or B? Have clarity on that, please. It's B. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor, I'm just going to, I do feel I have to make a point. You had a very thorough discussion last time round, and you came down to density, urbanisation, impact on services and open space. Those were the issues that you decided were the ones that you wanted to revisit. Not sure it's reasonable for us to now revisit other items which you've already thrashed out. But based on all that, I'm going to move it to. We have a proposal which is to defer again. I'm going to make a proposal that we accept the application as is. I'm assuming you want to make that proposal.
Yeah, propose to be again to decrease the density and more green space.
Okay. So we have a proposal to defer in order to seek a reduction in density and more green open space. I think I probably have to take that one first, and then after that, beg your pardon, keep pressing my mic on and off. If that falls, then I will make another proposal. Do you have a seconder? Second. To defer in order to seek further reduction in density and more green open space.
Just need to make the committee aware that obviously this is a second time for deferral, and there is a risk of the applicant could go to appeal on non-determination. So I need to raise that with you now.
If I just come back, yeah, I think.
People have been very patient, and I really appreciate it. But there are a few little conversations starting. So if I can really just ask you to hold back. I'm sure you'll have lots to say after the event, but we do need to, as I said at the beginning, it's not a public meeting. It is for us to debate the issues, and you're most welcome to be listening, and we're glad that people are attending, but please keep it quiet until we complete our discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if I can just come back to that, but yeah, I totally take that on board. I think there's an opportunity for the developer to make some changes. If they don't, then I do expect the normal course to take its way, so if they appeal, and then appeal, it's up to them.
Is that not quite clear where that took us? Is that yeah?
As long as the committee is aware, and that there's obviously a risk of costs as well with that. But
okay, So we'll take a vote on that proposal.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We've got a motion which has been seconded to defer the application based on the grounds of density and open space. Please can you confirm whether you're for, against or abstain? Andy Davis? Or Rosemary Dartnell?
Against.
Greg Ebbs? Or Brian Evans?
For.
Adam Pfeiffer?
For.
Gary Groves?
Against.
Mark Owen?
Against.
Ed Potter?
Against.
Rosie Radford?
Abstain.
Carl Rowley?
For.
Julian Dean?
Against.
Sorry, Chair. So it's
Okay,
5 for, 5 against, 1 abstention. So
so I have the custody
you
vote.
have the custody.
Okay, well, then I have to stick to my guns, which is to vote against that.
Okay, thank you, Chair. That proposal fails.
So I'm going to propose, reluctantly, but I'm going to propose that we accept the proposal as is. Subject to the conditions there are presented 6106. Do I have a seconder?
Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that, but I would just like to make the comment that if the developer could go away and do something out of goodwill, which would be appreciated, but I will second your proposal.
Thank you, Chair. So we have a proposal to approve planning application, subject to the conditions set out in the officer's report, along with securing the contributions set out in the report. Please, can you confirm whether you're for, against, or abstain? Andy Davis? Yes. Rosemary Dartnell?
For.
Greg Ebbs?
Against.
Brian Evans?
Against.
Adam Pfeiffer?
Abstain.
Gary Groves?
For.
Mark Owen?
For.
Ed Potter?
For.
Rosie Radford?
Against.
Paul Rowley?
Against.
Julian Dean? For. That is 5 for, 5 against, with 1 abstention. So it comes down to
Okay, well, my custody vote is for.
that proposal is carried and planning permission is granted, subject to conditions and contributions.
Okay, committee, that took us an hour and a quarter. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the public for your patience. We will now take a quick pause as people leave.
That was right.
It was, but this would be in the appeal. And what swayed my mind was when he was about the A53 one. That's given. I proposed, well, Rosemary proposed, and I seconded it. But managed to get it.
Committee, if you want to treat this as a comfort break, we will take 5 minutes.
I'm not going to
So the next application is land adjacent to Cloverfield, Chester Road, Whitchurch. Over to officers, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a outline application for proposed residential development to include access matters only. There was a further public objection received since the reports were made public. Comments are largely in line with the objectors that are written into section 4 of the report. It's only a short one, so I'll probably just read it out. No more houses in Whitchurch, it's spoiling our beautiful countryside. We have not enough of facilities in schools and medical practices. We are losing wildlife. So this plan shows the application in the red line, the application boundary in red, and then land ownership in blue to the west. The application site lies to the northwest of Whitchurch along Chester Road. The application site is outside of the development boundary for Whitchurch within the current adopted plan. It wasn't going to be a allocated site within the former draft plan, and it was remaining countryside under that emerging plan also. This plan shows the constraints and opportunities. So I don't know if you can make out on there, but basically it's got some arrows to show the topography of the site. That central green blob is an existing group of trees. There is a existing brick built field shelter, and then it shows the treatment towards the boundary edges and any watercourses or field ditches. Important to note that the site itself does not hold any statutory designation for landscape, ecology, heritage. There is a local wildlife designation, but it's not a statutorily protected designation. Access is from the east, directly off Chester Road. Here is a plan to show the proposed site junction. With access included at outline, the highways officer has confirmed that they're happy with the access proposals in terms of junction visibility, space and access apron and speed. The speed of traffic alongside the road in kind of conjunction to the access point. Although the development is not seeking to secure an amount of housing as part of this outline consent, the applicant has submitted an indicative master plan to demonstrate that the site is capable of up to 65. Sorry. The indicative is on the screen now. They show a range of house types, including detached, semi-detached, and a range of property sizes, including public open space, retention of existing vegetation, and proposed new planting. With it being indicative, it's purely, it's just to show us that the site is capable of delivering residential development without any adverse impact on landscape, built environment, or natural or historic environment. So the indicative master plan is helpful in getting to understand that suitable standoff distances between the boundaries can be achieved, that the appropriate amount of public open space can be delivered, and so on. Alongside, I think that this is showing also the affordable housing. The affordable housing, although it is only at outline stage, it would be secured through the 106. Sorry, let me just remind myself how much they are delivering. So they're providing 15% affordable housing, which would equal 10 on site, which would be an over provision on the policy requirement of 10% for this location. Moving on to some site photos and some contextual plans now. Again, it's a bit zoomed out, but this one basically, it's got the, if I can zoom in and move across for you, the application site is shown with the red star. There is a concurrent application with the local planning authority for on the opposite side of Chester Road. That is still in the pending consideration stage, so there's no outcome on that application as of yet. They've highlighted the town centre and the strategic roads around the site, whilst also identifying local services and facilities. So the yellow stars that we can see there are local supermarkets. The purple star is a local employment centre, and then 2 and 3, I think they're local sports and recreation provisions within Whitchurch Town Centre. So although it is on the outer edge of the built form, it is accessible, largely accessible to the town centre facilities. That is helped considerably with a package of improvement works which would be secured through the 106 in terms of pedestrian and cycle improvements along Chester Road. The Chester Road cycling improvements is an identified improvement scheme within the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. So it's not a SIL project, it's a standalone piece of work that the council have prepared to identify where cycling improvements could be made. Chester Road is one of them. This application has been identified as deficient in terms of access via foot or bike. So the applicant is willing to contribute no less than 260 £260,000 towards localised improvements, which would contribute to the wider Chester Road scheme. So here is a view of the existing agricultural access. Looking onto the site, here's a view from Chester Road, looking west. As you see, it's largely just an open field. View from within site, looking back to the access point and Chester Road. So there are some slight undulations on the site. However, details such as levels, such as landscaping, such as appearance would all be reserved for later approval at reserve matter stage. It's purely just outline. This is from within the site looking back over to Chester Road, and we can see that there's an existing care home over in the background. The foreground is largely just the open fields. Similar view with existing built development in the background. Here is the existing field shelter on the site towards the right hand side, and there's that existing tree group that was plotted on the opportunities and constraints plan. Pictures of the field. Yeah, their properties in the background there are along Pear Tree Lane. So again, it's just showing the proximity with the site and the existing built-up area. So there's a lot of images of the field here. There we go. So I think the officer's recommendation is to approve subject to conditions in a Section 106 agreement. I think the recommendation has been born out of quite a thorough negotiation stage with the applicant. You'll note that the application was submitted in January this year. There's been a back and forth. Oh no, sorry, not January. Sorry, ignore the submission date on that one. The recommendation is very much made on balance, where we recognise that the site is in conflict with the local plan. It is a countryside location. However, we are in the tilted balance scenario where we have to attach less weight to those adopted policies, instead look at applications through the lens of sustainable development. We are on the edge of Whitchurch. You know, it is a significant town which is expected to achieve a large proportion of our housing growth across the plan period and future plan periods. And the officers, that there's no technical objections through consultees on this one. The recommendation is one for approval on the basis that the harms are not significant and are not significant enough to outweigh the presumption in favour of sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Peter Down, local resident. Peter. Just the right hand button. And you have 3 minutes from when you start.
Good afternoon. If I may draw your attention, please, to section 3.1 of the Development Management Report that you have before you. It states, and I quote, Objections have been received from the Town Council and the local member, which raise material planning considerations that warrant committee consideration. It is these material planning considerations that I wish to bring to the committee's attention. Point 1, strong local opposition. Whitchurch Town Council and the local member object to this development, arguing that local policies which do not support this development outweigh NPPF guidelines. Point 2, decision reversal. In a pre-application letter dated 6th of March 2025 to the developer, I have a copy here, the council's planning officer says an application for residential development would not be supported. However, in the development report before you, the planning officer recommends permission be granted. I challenge this revision. Point 3, policy inconsistencies. Fundamental to the planning officer's change in decision from refusal to approval is the interpretation of the council's current housing land supply. Section 1.1.1 of the development report before you states the council's most recent 5-year housing land supply statement confirms that Shropshire can only demonstrate a 4.73-year supply of deliverable housing land, falling short of the 5-year requirement set out in the NPPF. However, in the letter dated 6th of March to the developer, the planning officer, whilst acknowledging shortfall in housing supply, goes on to state, whilst the shortfall has to be recognised, in context, this is considered to be relatively small shortfall, which may be addressed by sites considered to be more suitable than the inquiry site and which have already been submitted. This is important. As of the 6th of March, the planning officer did not believe the shortfall of material in considering this application. However, the planning application before you does consider the shortfall to be material, a clear policy inconsistency. Point 4, housing guidelines already met. In a letter dated 6th of March to the developer, the planning officer stated that the site is located outside the current settlement limit of Whitchurch, and on the basis of the housing guideline already being exceeded relatively significantly by 329 dwellings, there is a policy presumption against this development. Strong local opposition from the Town Council and member, local community views, decision reversal, policy inconsistencies and housing guidelines already exceeded should be considered as strong evidence to the committee should refuse this application.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Any points of clarification, committee? No, thank you very much. Councillor Andy Hall. You have 5 minutes from when you begin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. In support of my residents in the North Ward in Whitchurch, I will represent those who attended the recent public meeting. I've rejected this outline plan permission for the reasons listed in the report. Residents have been represented today by Peter Down with their views from the local context in Pear Tree Lane, so I'm not going to go over all those again. I've read the comments from case officer Jane Priest, including that currently Shropshire can only demonstrate a 4.73-year supply of deliverable housing land, which obviously is a shortfall from the 5-year requirement. So therefore, given the application has been recommended for approval, I would like to concentrate on the traffic and transport aspects of the application. I feel there's always been an expectation that once a bypass is built around a town such as Whitchurch, there is an assumption that there will be an urban spread to that point. And the supply plans submitted don't look unreasonable, everything being equal. I think the layout is a good design, and it's not the worst plan application that I've seen in recent times that have become before planning committees and are being put in all over the place at the moment. Although it is recognised that in the past, before the construction of the Whitchurch bypass, Chester Road was indeed a major trunk road, which handled heavy traffic of its time. However, it is still an arterial route into Whitchurch. The road over the last few years has been has considerable development, which has contributed to a large increase of traffic movement. It also has become an identified area of speeding motorists, which is exacerbated by poor parking along Brooklands further down from the proposed site entrance. The concurrent plan application for the land east of Chester Road, which will be 190 homes and associated infrastructure, while referencing this application, makes no attempt to address the impact on road safety. Both developments will be pretty much directly opposite each other, although that will become a pinch point in our view, although I do realise that the entries are a small distance apart. There's a lot of speeding goes on Chester Road at the moment, which the Town Council have approved some money to put some measures in place, but we still think that there's more required. Clearly, the volume of traffic on all adjoining roads is substantial, and the current infrastructure cannot support any more housing and traffic without additional access arrangements being in place. In 6.3.2, Jane mentions the contribution for the 106 of £260,000, which is welcomed for the cycle and walking infrastructure plan for Whitchurch. I would just like to mention that if the council are meant to approve this application, I'd like to ask for the following: a speed reduction to 30 miles an hour from the bypass roundabout into Whitchurch, which is currently 40 miles an hour. Traffic calming measures developed to include perhaps an additional roundabout configuration at any pinch point to slow traffic down, and a review of accessible, safe travel and pavement and footways for pedestrians for those using wheelchairs and motor scooters, especially where Chester Road meets Bargates and the access to Sainsbury's. And that is a problem for this area in town. I think that's been identified by officers already, that if you're in a mobility scooter coming into town, there's no safe access point to cross from the end of Chester Road, which many would do if they were going to shop at their local store at Sainsbury's. So I'd like to think that any money would be tied to actually improving this arrangement for residents of Chester Road, and not just that, but all the developments in the area. And that's me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And any questions, clarification? Thank you. Then we have Nigel Thorne, the agent of the applicant. So once again, you have 3 minutes from when you begin. You press the right hand button.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nigel Thorns. I'm a planning consultant based in Shrewsbury, and I'm here to support the planning application. The officer report is very clear and comprehensive, and so I will only pick up on a few key points. As you know, without a 5-year land supply, the updated National Planning Policy Framework introduces a tilted balance approach to decision making, setting out the presumption in favour of sustainable development. So in terms of sustainability, Whitchurch is the third most sustainable settlement in Shropshire in the Council's hierarchy of settlements document, only behind Shrewsbury and Ludlow. And so Whitchurch should be a key focal point for new housing development. The site itself is contained on its northern and southern boundaries by existing built development, with a draft allocated site on the eastern side of Chester Road. In addition, the landscape and visual appraisal demonstrates that visual impacts will be limited. The site's within walking and cycling distance of the town, and there's a regular bus service along Chester Road. Your officer report today confirms that this is a highly sustainable scheme in line with NPPF policy. The other speakers have mentioned a number of detailed issues, access, traffic, and other issues. In terms of the access, we've checked, in conjunction with your highways team, we've checked the volumes, types and speed of traffic at 4 different locations along Chester Road. And this being a former trunk road, it is fully capable of accommodating the proposed traffic levels. The design of the access into the site is also suitable and safe. The density of development, a bit of a discussion point earlier on, if it is developed for 65 dwellings, it will be 19 dwellings per hectare, quite low for this area of town. Each of the other matters raised by the previous speakers has been fully addressed in ongoing discussions with your officers, and importantly are fully resolved. The issue of the pre-app, the local resident mentioned the pre-app and some comments in the pre-app. the idea of the pre-app, you get the advice, you change the planning application, you put the planning application in, and that's what we've done. We've resolved the issues in the pre-app to get to the point of a recommendation for approval. So all of the technical consultees are in support. There's a SIL contribution just short of £500,000, a Section 106 contribution of around about 260,000 for cycling and walking improvements. There's a new footpath linking the rear of the site to the wider footpath network, and affordable housing, as mentioned, has been set at 15%, 5% above the policy requirement. So we're fully in compliance with the MPPF. All technical consultees confirmed that the scheme is acceptable. Your planning officer recommended that the application be approved subject to robust planning conditions, and we're happy to sign the Section 106 agreement. So we hope you're able to approve the application this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? Thank you. Any comments from officers following those presentations? No? Okay, so opening up to members, please. Councillor Ebbs.
Thank you. Looking at the existing plan, I would like to say that it's a lot more spread out in density than previous applications, and there's a lot of green space. It looks to be quite well designed in comparison to other applications which have come through, and I do appreciate. So I just want to first start off with those points. I would also like to say that I do appreciate the 106 agreement in addition to the SIL, which is usually quite uncommon, and I would very much welcome the 260,000. I would like to explore that 260,000 Section 106 to see if we can take into account Councillor Andy Hall's comments about a roundabout configuration or pavement footways. Is there any way we can tie in some of that money to specific infrastructure for local cycling and walking routes?
Thank you. Yes, please.
Through you, Chair.
If you just introduce yourself again.
Yes, Chris Mead, Senior Developing Highways Manager. So the first thought that needs to occur in taking assessment of a site like this is ensuring that an access is safe and suitable, but is low maintenance burden and is going to serve its function for us for its duration without us needing to be concerned about how it operates in the future. So a simple T junction in this location, simplest form of junction, very simple, very acceptable. To secure a roundabout would be a much greater sum of money, and to secure a roundabout as access would mean that would be a direct cost to the developer, which would diminish opportunities for other contributions. So we're seeking to secure an appropriate form of access which is sustainable for us in the long term at a reasonable cost. In terms of the other measures that have been highlighted, and I have taken on those views and I have received them as part of the correspondence through the course of this consultation. The agent has identified that they did measured speeds on the road. At our request, they did a significant body of work on that, and unfortunately the speeds which are occurring do not automatically inform reducing the speed down to 30 miles an hour without adding additional infrastructure into place, which again, currently in planning policy terms, our strategic goal is to prioritise walking and cycling over car travel and those matters. So we don't have a speeding issue within the existing speed limits. I don't have sufficiently good information to reduce existing speed limits. So the £260,000 has been secured for walking and cycling improvements in accordance with your local cycling, walking and infrastructure plans.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dartnell and then Councillor Evans.
Thank you. I'd just like to come back on some of the comments there as well, please. I think that if we don't have speeding under a 40-mile-an-hour regime, I do think that Councillor Hall's comments about asking for 30 miles an hour on that section with housing likely to be on either side and a wish to spend sort of £1 million on improving local walking and cycling facilities, it would make sense to look at that 30 mile an hour to facilitate an improvement of active travel in that area. And just to really note that I'm surprised to find the only place I've ever heard of in Shropshire where the bus service is adequate. There's no buses. Okay, so that's a mistake in the report that says the bus services are not mentioned because they are considered to be adequate. That might be something we should be looking at.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Councillor Dartmouth kind of stole my thunder a bit with the opening to your suggestion that speed restrictions would be a good idea here, certainly along Chester Road. I must say I'm much happier with the layout near 19 houses per hectare, some nice green spaces, no problem there. I think the S106 260,000. That's a good sum. The CIO money will be good in this context. Only thing I would like to see, as far as highways concerned, really is considering that speed restriction. Appreciate that putting a roundabout would be very, very expensive there. Probably no need if we could reduce the speed along Chester Road. Thank you.
I think it's Councillor Evan Davis and then Councillor Radford.
I'm considering this at the moment as agricultural land. So what evidence base have you made to override the decision to develop here? It's grade 3, it's grade 3A and B agricultural land. So what decisions have you actually made to allow an application to happen here?
Sorry, can you just confirm what you mean by override?
Right, so apparently, so this is grade 3 AB agricultural land at the moment.
Yeah.
So in order to develop this sort of land, you've considered an evidence base for it?
Yes.
So what evidence base have you considered there's a need to actually develop this land?
Well, in direct response to the agricultural land classification, there is a report submitted by the applicant. That goes into, because the interactive mapping, it doesn't break down 3 into 3A and 3B. So the report has gone down into what is 3A and what is 3B. 0.73 hectares of a 3.4 hectare site is 3A, and the remainder 2.67 is grade 3B. Only 3A is considered best and most versatile. That's the 3A and upwards is what's protected within local policy. So the report, I think, has highlighted where the 3A land is, but just being 3A is not determinative of a refusal, because we have to accept that we have to lose agricultural land to build houses. There is only a finite amount of brownfield land. The majority of it is greenfield. So there is an acceptance that we will lose some BMV land as a result of that. It's then looking at making sure that that loss of BMV land is in the best place. We're on the edge of a major town in Shropshire, one of our biggest and most sustainable towns. To lose BMV land on the edge of Whitchurch is better than losing BMV land in the middle of the countryside, for example. So it's a measured assessment where we're looking at not just whether it's BMV, but a number of factors in terms of what makes sustainable development.
Thank you. Before I go on, just want to make a very brief point, which is that if we can't have it both ways. If we want to protect green space, we can't then also argue for very low density, because that effectively means we're just going to take up more space per house. Just to make that point. But Councillor Radford, I think, is next.
Thank you. Just to take my fellow councillors' points a little bit further around speed restrictions and traffic calming. If a roundabout is not affordable, are there any other traffic calming measures? So I think while you cited a T-junction being a traffic calming measure, my concerns are around the speed. If you're adding 2 more T-junctions in that area in close proximity, actually the safety of people coming out of those 2 developments as well, I think should be considered. So yes, people will slow down to turn in, but in terms of turning out, are there any other affordable measures, chicanes, bumps? I don't know, can't name any more, but.
There are 2 requirements of planning when it comes to highways, which is the first one, that schemes are safe or not safe, and we make a decision on that, and then we make a recommendation on the residual cumulative impacts. In terms of existing vehicle speeds and behaviour of traffic in sites and locations where there is no existing accident history, where it would not be feasible for me to anticipate that there would be future accidents as a consequence of this new access arrangement, to introduce a further set of traffic calming and a speed reduction measure, which is not a scheme anticipated already by this council. It would need for me to be able to demonstrate that it was absolutely necessary solely because this development was coming forward in this location. And for those reasons, I'm not able to create such a position, because I'm not able to look at this development in this context and say without a shadow of doubt that it is the only reason why those further works would be necessary. So when we take that into position, we then look at our responsibilities under the NPPF, which is to prioritise walking and cycling to maximise opportunities for sustainable travel. We don't have a concern about the relative safety of our network in terms of the current accident behaviour which occurs on this section of road. So the focus from this is to push into those adopted programmes that you already have in this council, which are your LTP and your LC whips, which are to secure pedestrian and cycling improvements. So for that reason, the initial £260,000 from this development is proposed into the LC whip, just so that councillors have some confidence looking ahead. Mr. Thomas has already identified the other site opposite, and that came in earlier, so we've been in a negotiation pattern with them for a longer period of time. We are seeking all of the direct works that we want on the Chester Road, the section 278 style works, to come forth from that proposal. That's an emerging picture. It's not something which we could say is definitely happening because planning hasn't been secured yet. But we've looked at this application on its own merits being determined today and made the decision that the best route is a section 106 contribution.
Councillor Radford.
Sorry if I'm asking out of context. Therefore, is there any pedestrian crossing in the area? If you are prioritising active travel and you're increasing housing in one area and potentially housing in another, is there pedestrian crossings?
Yes, perhaps not in the form which you're envisaging, in perhaps zebras and push buttons, pelicans, toucan and the like. We've already looked at what we feel is the best crossing opportunities and relationship on both sides of the existing Chester Road, and then coming south towards the town centre main, and clearly there's an opportunity to proceed all the way down one side, and from that side then be in the area where those section 106 monies are geared up to be spent. Crossing improvements in the vicinity of Sainsbury's, they are all identified schemes in your portfolio already. So the development here is having a direct impact. It is going to result in the people living there in the future wanting to walk and cycle to these local supermarkets and schools that Mr. Thomas identified on the plan, and we are securing monies for that purpose. If there are specific ambitions from the LC whip which are of greater interest to you to see delivered from the section 106, then post recommendation and post securing of those funds, talk to Highways and see if you can establish those schemes which are of most concern to you as a direct impact. Come forward first.
Thank you for that. I think we're on Councillor Owen and then Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things that I was going to ask about have already been dealt with. One point of information, we must remember that this is outline planning permission. So when you say that the scheme looks nice, that was just an indicative idea of what it could be like and not the actual scheme. That's going to come back under reserve matters. I'm teaching my grammar second, I'm sure, so don't worry, my apologies. When the reserve matters come back for the actual scheme, will that have an effect on what we see in terms of pedestrian and cycling access, and therefore would we be looking at that again at that point when the actual scheme is obvious? Yep.
Mr. Thomas is probably in a better position to explain planning than I am, but for the purposes of this application, this is the access plan. So everything else that you've seen, whilst it can inform your judgment, it is reserved matters, as you pointed out. So for the purposes of securing access, this is the only piece of work on site which is being secured at this point.
I've heard what everyone said, and I understand about the concerns around the traffic, but I think there's some money's built into this, which can hopefully address that. So we're establishing the principle of development, so I'd be happy to move for approval.
Thank you. Does that have a seconder? It does. Okay. Do I have any other proposals? In which case we'll move to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. So we have a proposal which has been seconded to grant outline plan permission, subject to the matters contained in the report. Please can you confirm whether you're for, against, or abstain? Andy Davis? For. Rosemary Dartnell?
For.
Greg Ebbs?
For.
Brian Evans?
For.
Adam Pfeiffer?
For.
Harry Groves?
For.
Mark Owen?
For.
Ed Potter?
For.
Rosie Radford?
For.
Carl Rowley?
For.
Julian Dean? For. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, committee. Thank you to those of you in the audience who came for that item. We'll now move on to just give it a second for people to leave the room. Okay, we're moving on to item 7, proposed residential development land at East Shrewsbury Road, Hadnall.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is being made in full, and it's for the construction of 44 dwellings, vehicular access via Shrewsbury Road, public open space, landscaping and planting, associated infrastructure and enabling works. Again, there's some late reps in the schedule sent out, some updates to the correct local member details, a further planning objection to the application, and a submission of additional information by the applicant following the report being published. That additional information is in the recommendation made, where the officer recommendation references a walking and cycling review and internal road design to adopt with standards. Officers are still reviewing this information. So today the recommendation is as on the committee report. So this plan shows the application site in red. It is south of the village in Hadnall. You can see that there's development on either ends to the north and the south, and also on the opposing side of the highway to the west. Here is the proposed colour site layout. We can see the 44 dwellings arranged across a series of streets in a hierarchy that support the main street to secondary streets and then private drives. The application is a range of 2 to 4 bedroom properties, and also ranging from bungalows to 2-storey dwellings. The bungalow properties are all over in this back corner, and they're designed to M42 and M43 accessibility standards. The affordable housing, the contribution requires 4 on site plus a small top up with a financial contribution. Those 4 dwellings are provided here in 2 semi-detached rows. The application site, it is a former draft allocation of the local plan that is no more. However, this red line does extend beyond that allocation. All of the built development is within the former draft allocation, but the areas for POS and sustainable urban drainage fall outside of. There are some technical reasons for that. I think that the ground conditions and infiltration rates didn't allow suitable attenuation within site. So it's been pushed onto the outer periphery, and it needs to be included in the red line. So the former draft allocation has been slightly extended. However, as has been referenced many times, it's not actually attaching weight to the allocation, it's the evidence base behind it. So the red line, for the purposes of defining the site, can have a bit of flex and give. This plan just shows the single-story bungalows in blue. There are some other blue buildings plotted on that plan. They're just garages associated with dwellings. The majority of dwellings are 2-story. Here we can see the makeup of bedroom numbers. So the paler yellow, a 2-bedroom, the orange, a 3-bedroom, and the red, a 4-bedroom. So this plan on here is the flood route plan. Hadnall is quite well known for some drainage problems. It's got major issues with its foul sewerage network. So I thought I'd show that this flood drainage plan is for surface only, and it shows that surface water will be directed away from properties using the internal road network and then draining into the attenuation suds basin towards the east of the site. Because of the drainage issues and the surface water is treated wholly within the site, and only foul surface will be discharged off-site. Here is a plan showing the access plan with visibility displays. Access to the site is currently from this southern point, but it is no more than a field gate, whereas the proposal is to create a more established and 2-way access junction further north. This application, they will be moving the speed restriction further south. So the 30 mile an hour speed limit currently is adjacent to the northwestern, to this northern corner near enough. It's moving to where this blue box is down here. Here's a typical street scene just to get an idea of the dwelling's appearance and design. So largely traditional for new build. It reflects the local vernacular of Hadnall. It ties in certain detailing, and I think it demonstrates that there is no prevalent style and form which needs to be mimicked on this site. They have a bit of creativity they can use here, and officers are satisfied that the design is acceptable. There's another street visual just to show. So here we can see the bungalow properties over on the corner. Good spacing between all street trees towards the front, and then also a mix of boundary enclosures, including low-level hedging and also timber fencing between the plots. So showing you some site photos here. Unfortunately, these photos are not truly representative of the site today. So can you see that tree in the centre there? That did fall down during a storm, so it no longer exists. There are a group of trees that are all being protected along this boundary here, and there's also one within the site which is needing to be removed in order to achieve the site layout. However, the application is offsetting the loss of a tree with the addition of 70 new trees to be planted. So there's the picture showing the existing access. So this picture we're pretty much at where the new access into the site would be on the left-hand side. Looking into the site again, here's a picture of the tree that fell down, just to show that it did fall down. So the officer's recommendation is one of approval. Again, it's conflict with the adopted local policy, but there's significant material considerations which would sway that balance towards approval in line with the presumption in favour of sustainable development. As I have mentioned, I think this application it has been a bit drawn out in regards to the foul sewage issues in Hadnall. I think we've been, as a council, we've been working with Severn Trent to understand what their programme of works are and timetable for implementation so that we can actually determine some applications in Hadnall. They have now confirmed that there is a specific funding stream to deliver localised improvements to Hadnall. So we're able to now work on the basis that we can approve schemes subject to a Grampian condition. And the Grampian condition is it's opposite to a normal condition in that it's negatively worded in that rather than saying, you know, prior to commencement or something, we're saying that the development cannot be occupied until off-site works are delivered. So if, I'm not sure if you would have read through all of the conditions, but it's condition 18, the very last one. That's it. That's the one that's been put forward by Severn Trent, and we're satisfied that it does what it needs to do in ensuring that we're not worsening flooding issues or any environmental harm. Thank you.
Very much. We have 3 speakers. Our first speaker is Alison Utting, Clerk of Hadnall Parish Council. Alison, you have 3 minutes from when you begin.
Thank you, Chair, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Hadnall Parish Council. The Council wishes to express their strong objections to this proposal. The site was tied to the withdrawn draft local plan, the plan that no longer exists, and Hadnall remains designated as open countryside. This site lies outside the settlement boundary. It's misleading to say it's between development. It's ribbon development of isolated properties down the road to the south, as the 30-mile-an-hour limit indicates. It's a productive agricultural land that serves as a significant wildlife buffer. It separates the village from neighbouring Astley and keeps a distance from Shrewsbury with a green belt. There are no exceptional circumstances to justify development here. The proposal fails to meet the NPPF test for sustainable development. It offers no economic, social or environmental net gain. It's a standalone car-dependent scheme with no pedestrian or cycle links to the village. It does not integrate with Hadnall's built character or community. But it's our infrastructure concerns that are critical. Hadnall already suffers severe drainage and sewerage failures, documented by Severn Trent, our MP, local councillors and residents. No solution has yet been modelled. No timeframes exist, and residents continue to face flooding risk, with one particular property needing a tanker every time we have heavy rain. The latest communication we've received from Severn Trent states that residents really need to canvass their elected members to make sure the planning committee does not approve any more development in Hadnall. Helen Morgan, MP, is firmly of the opinion that no further properties should be built before that improvement. The Grampian condition proposed is an inadequate response. It requires that homes built on this development should not be inhabited before 2027 or the improvement works are complete. No timeframe is currently in place for those works. The homes, if built, could stand empty. While they would not be occupied, there would still be a dramatic change to the built environment, both during construction and after completion, affecting drainage and sewage in ways we cannot predict, since Severn Trent are still in the investigative stage of the Hadnall project. The local primary school and GP practice are at capacity. Residents have repeatedly asked for play facilities and village hall investment, none of which are included in this proposal. Trust in this developer is low, with many residents expressing that previous projects in the village left unresolved flooding and boundary issues. Consultation responses on this proposal seem to have been selectively applied. Residents feel ignored. This proposal brings no benefit to Hadnall. It would damage the countryside, overwhelm infrastructure and undermine community cohesion. Hadnall Parish Council and the residents of Hadnall urge you to refuse planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have a question for you, I think. Yes, for you, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted you to, if you wouldn't mind repeating the section where you mentioned, I think it was it Severn Trent saying that there should be no more development. Could you read that again and also tell me where it's quoted from?
Yeah, it's quoting directly from an email that was received. I'm sorry, I can't remember the date of the email, but it's within the last few weeks. Residents really need to canvass their elected members to make sure the planning committee does not approve any more development. And that's verbatim from Severn Trent.
Thank you. Did you have a question?
Not directly the person, but more to the officer. Did they were aware about that kind of communication from to the residents from the Severn Trent? Because I think it's a little bit contradiction with point 18 and what just been presented.
I will take that question to the officer now, but I think we thank you very much.
Yes, that is the first time we're hearing of these types of correspondences. I think I draw members' attention to section 4.114, where it shows that we have had discussions with Severn Trent. They initially were not happy with the proposals, and neither were we, because they weren't telling us what their programme of works were. That was, as I say, this application, it's dated 24. I know it was validated early in January, so we've had it nearly a year. So those discussions have been ongoing, and the latest correspondence we've had from, as a local planning authority from Severn Trent, I think was the 17th of November. And maybe, you know, it might be a day or two either side of that, but it's within a matter of a couple of weeks where they've come to us and suggested this condition number 18 in the committee report.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that this communication has been since that Grampian condition appeared on the planning portal.
Okay, thank you for that. We move on to our second speaker, Councillor.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Can I just come back on a couple of points? Not to necessarily invite the parish council back up. We've not, as I confirmed, we don't have record of that. And just to make a secondary point as well, as a local planning authority, the fact that a utility provider will not accept new connections into a network is not a valid reason for refusal. We would have to find there would be some environmental harm in not having a suitable network at capacity available. So if you know, that's why the Grampian condition is there, because we're not able to say Severn Trent don't have the capacity, therefore we're going to refuse. We're not able to do that. It's a tried and tested, you know, planning argument that you just cannot make those types of refusals.
Okay, I think we may need to return to that in debate later on, but I think we should move on.
Good afternoon, committee. First and foremost, I should raise my concerns that the famously withdrawn local plan keeps being cited in support of this and other applications. It seems quite surreal reasoning to rely on a plan that has been deliberately disestablished. I mean, can you invoke the ghost of a dead plan and act as if it's still alive? I'm still trying to get my head around that one. In the absence of that plan's rationale, this site must be considered for what it is, a greenfield site and designated open countryside as defined by the NPPF, and thus not suitable for residential development. I would emphasise the chronic lack of amenities, services and employment in Hadnell and the wider local area. Any additional residents would join the ranks of local people who have to live their lives further afield around the greater Shrewsbury area or beyond. The North West Relief Road has been suspended for the foreseeable future, and the Shrewsbury Big Town Plan will severely curtail car mobility through and within the town. This and other large developments proposed around North Shrewsbury are just going to deepen the already chronic congestion issues on that side of town. I would expect a significant increase in rush hour traffic for both work commuters and particularly the school run, with no planned increase in allocation of places at Hadnell CFE School, which is already oversubscribed. There is no local surgery, and the further afield practices that serve Hadnell residents are again also heavily oversubscribed. There's no envisaged increase in employment opportunities nearby, increasing commuting activities around the county and beyond. Active travel will certainly not be an option for these vital journeys to jobs and services. On that subject, Highways stated that a walking and cycling review is required prior to determination to ensure safe and inclusive routes to and from the development. I don't see whether or not that has been completed. Hadnell already contends with road safety concerns situated as it is on the busy A49 onto which traffic from this development would emerge. The addition of nearly 100 households between this and another nearby application would represent a massive overdevelopment of a small village on a very busy road. This was an initial concern for Highways, with new site access designs being demanded, and I see that the speed limits will now need to be moved. Can't see whether or not approval has been sought or received from West Mercia Police? And if it is received, will the developer bear the significant cost of implementing this if it is approved? Hadnall's been long plagued with chronic drainage issues throughout the village. After a long period of lobbying, Severn Trent have now embarked upon a detailed survey of all drainage in the village, utilising ground penetrating radar and other specialised techniques in order to ascertain the fundamental causes of these issues. In the Development Management Report, it is stated, upon reconsultation in July 2025, soakaways were confirmed as unfeasible, groundwater levels required clarification, and evidence of Severn Trent agreement remained outstanding. So Severn Trent's investigations are still ongoing, and we are yet to see their results published. So understandably, in that context, they have held back from agreeing to the feasibility of the drainage plan as far as I can see. We therefore question how drainage have confidence in their determination that the modified site drainage plan can be approved if it is not yet considered feasible in its own right, or indeed could exacerbate the wider and still to be quantified drainage problems in Hadnall that are still under investigation. And of course, Severn Trent have also requested the application of the granting condition we've mentioned earlier, preventing occupation of any dwelling with a negative completion date, I think 2028, due to concerns about the capacity of the network to accommodate the additional flows from the new houses. So, as you mentioned, that not necessarily a stopper, but you know, it's going to have to be fixed. And this is not just any village, this is Hadnall with these ongoing chronic problems that we still don't understand. So to conclude, this, in my opinion, is an inappropriate development of a greenfield site in a village that is underserved with infrastructure, increasing road safety and congestion burdens, and with major unresolved problems with both surface water drainage and wastewater. So I urge you to reject this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions to the councillor? No? Okay, thank you. We move on to Stuart Wells. You have 3 minutes from when you begin.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. This application seeks the delivery of 44 new homes as a logical and modest extension to Hadnall. The site was identified by the council as a preferred housing allocation in the now withdrawn local plan, and this council's cabinet has confirmed that the supporting evidence base to the withdrawn local plan remains a material consideration, which includes the settlement hierarchy and the assessment of this site. As officers have advised, this means that the rationale and evidence behind this site allocation can be given weight in the planning balance, which is weight in favour of the development. The intention to allocate the site demonstrates that Hadnall is a suitable location for housing growth, and this is all in the context that the council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing, with a pressing need for suitable housing sites to come forward now. Cameron Homes have been in discussions with Severn Trent Water, who, as the statutory undertaker, have confirmed their commitment to improvement works to the drainage network in Hadnall. To be clear, insufficient capacity in the local sewer network cannot be a reason by itself to refuse planning where the statutory undertaker has a plan to resolve the issue, as is the case here. A Grampian condition has been agreed between Severn Trent Water, Cameron Homes and planning officers, which restricts the occupation of any of the new dwellings before the end of 2027. This gives sufficient time for the required improvements to be completed, and if not, there is a contingency in the condition for a phased occupation of the dwellings, coordinated with the current status and programme of the sewer works at that time. Cameron's scheme, with the imposition of the Grampian condition, will incentivise the improvement works to be promptly completed, with a commitment from Severn Trent Water to a timely programme of delivery. The condition will be effective in ensuring the foul network has sufficient capacity to accommodate the proposed developments, and there is therefore no reason to withhold a decision on this application. And I would just stress, in response to the earlier speaker, we are not aware from our discussions with Severn Trent Water anything from their position which suggests that they have advised that applications should be refused in Hadnall. We are not aware of that. The Flood Authority has raised no objection, and the position of the attenuation pond has been moved away from nearby properties, and all surface water will be managed on site. The proposals will not increase surface risk elsewhere. The Highway Authority has confirmed that the access arrangement is acceptable, and this includes an extension of the 30-mile-an-hour zone along Shrewsbury Road. And also in response to the earlier speaker, to be clear, there is equipment proposed on site, play equipment. This is a trim trail and adult gym equipment. That's in the area of public open space. So to conclude, your planning officers have correctly found the proposed development to be wholly acceptable and appropriate for Hadnall, with the site having been identified previously as preferred allocation in the withdrawn local plan. And in the absence of an up-to-date plan and lack of housing supply, it is necessary to bring this site forward for development now. And the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies here. As per the recommendation of your officers, this application should be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification? Yes, Councillor Groves.
Yes, could I just seek clarification, please, on the bit I might have heard it wrong. You mentioned that no occupation can take place before 2027 unless work hasn't been done, and then there could be a phased occupation.
By the end of 2027, that is correct. So if the improvement works have not been completed, obviously Cameron will remain in discussions with Severn Trent Water as the development comes forward. But obviously we may be in a position where, I don't know, theoretically 75% of those improvement works have been completed, and therefore there can be a review of the capacity of the network at that time, and therefore that could theoretically inform the occupation of some of those dwellings or a part of the sites for any dwellings that have been constructed at that time. So in essence, it adds that level of flexibility to obviously allow those homes to be occupied.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, the phasing strategy is required to be agreed in writing by the local planning authority as well. So we would sign off on it essentially. And if we're not happy with it, we wouldn't sign off on it. There'd be a negotiation with all the parties involved.
Yeah, sorry, I was just making sure it was a three-way conversation, that one, and not just.
Thank you very much. Any further comments from officers in response to the presentations? Okay, so it's the floor. Councillor Radford first, and then Councillor Ebbs.
Mentioned that Severn Trent have now changed their position and had a time scale and a pot of money. Have you been given actual timescales for when they're expected to complete the works?
Bear with me, sorry. So we don't have a specific timeline of or program of works. We just have their commitment that the works will be completed by or before the 31st of December 2027.
Thank you. Councillor Ebbs.
Thank you. First, I'll make my comments on the design plan, and then I'll make my comments about the drainage. So, with the existing design plan, I like the inclusion of open space. It's definitely density as an aspect, and I have no objections with the actual existing design. I do have my concerns, however, given in light of the information which is presented here by the member of the public about Severn Trent's position in comparison to our understanding of our own. I understand that planning cannot make a rejection based on Severn Trent being going to provide facilities, but planning can make a deferment, if I'm correct, if there's insufficient information which exists about drainage. To do that, we would need to demonstrate that there's a lack of sustainability, and my concern there would lie with section 4.2.3, which it is noted that Severn Trent Water acknowledges the severity of these problems related to sewage and is planning major remedial works. Now, my concern is, how can statutory undertaker have a plan on how to address drainage when they emphasise that no work should take place? And therefore, where I currently stand is a deferment may be necessary until we can thoroughly clarify Severn Trent's stance, because we're hearing conflicting comments about where Severn Trent are. And I worry whether the contents of this report are out of date or incorrect, given what's been presented now.
Thank you. And I'm going to take that as a proposal, but I will continue to discuss. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We're confident the report is up to date and correct. The condition at number 18, in order for us to impose a grampian, we have to satisfy a test, and that test is we need to be satisfied that the works set out in the condition are deliverable in the timescales of the condition. The fact that the condition is in the committee report means that we're satisfied that test is met. We've got correspondence with Severn Trent that have a commitment to improving the foul drainage issues within Hadnor. The contradiction to that response is the first time we're hearing it today. It sounds like it's the first time everyone's hearing it today. From our point of view, Severn Trent are aware of the issues. They have a programme of works to resolve the issues, and we can proceed to grant applications on that basis, subject to right preoccupation, grampian conditions.
Senior Councillor Radford, I just wanted to check before we come back, because you've already spoken on this one, if anybody else wants to come in.
While there is a grampian condition that talks about no occupation, you've got potentially up to 2 years until Severn Trent needs to sort out the infrastructure, and in that time a piece of land is being built on and taking away natural soakaway and increasing the pressure on flooding that's already an issue in the area. So we are allowing a situation potentially where we are increasing flooding for up to 2 years in a small village environment, which just doesn't feel right.
So the flooding issues are to do with kind of the sewerage network in terms of its capacity, and that it can't accommodate all of the what's currently fed into it, so then it's bubbling up into the surface. I'm not aware that surface water is an issue within Hadnor or in relation to this application site. So I think our drainage team have confirmed that the site's across flood zone 1. I'm not aware of there being any significant surface water issues across the site. So I think trying to conflate the surface and foul drainage issues is perhaps we shouldn't be doing it, essentially. And in reality, I think we have to take a kind of common sense approach in regards to that condition. I would be very surprised if a developer builds out houses with 18 months before they can sell them. In terms of cash flow and saleability, profitability, I'd be very surprised if they would even consider getting on site before they know Severn Trent are well underway with their improvement works. However, it's not within our gift to restrict that.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Rowley, then Councillor Potter, then Councillor Owen.
Just a question to the planning officer. You just said then that you weren't aware of a problem of surface water in Hadnor. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, at the very beginning when you introduced this application, you said that you recognised that there was a problem with surface water in Hadnor.
If I said surface, I meant foul, so I'll stand corrected if I did say surface, but...
Where were we? Sorry, Councillor Potter.
I'm not sure if we've had a proposal or not, but I think we did. Did we have a proposal?
We've had a suggestion for a deferral.
I'd be happy to second that. Something doesn't quite sit right here. I think it's well documented that the surface water flooding issues with Hadnor. I can remember people on the news regularly talking about that, as well as foul drainage situation. I'm not sure this grampian condition quite sits right with me somehow, and how that's all going to pan out with the timescales without having firm information. And if there is something being presented at committee today, which is a contrary view that we're all hearing for the first time, until I think we probably need to see that documented for us to make a firm decision. So that's where I'm at.
Yep. So Owen,
sorry, Chair. Could I just query what we're in deferring the application? What are we hoping to achieve? Because we know when Severn Trent are going to deliver the improvement works. By December 2027 is the date we've got in the condition. We can't defer it until December 2027.
So I take it from the comments from the committee that what we're asking, that we're trying to achieve, is some clarity, given that just to make the point, first of all, that, you know, as the committee will know, I'm not at all happy about having evidence appearing at the very last minute. However, it has, and the committee is clearly unnerved by that evidence and concerned that this seems to be a contradiction to what's the reason. Councillor Bradford? God, Councillor Dartnell, sorry.
No worries, thank you.
I beg your pardon. It was Councillor Owen next. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to take a slightly contrary view for this because the established long-term problems with drainage in Hadnell looks like potentially has a solution on by the 31st of December 2027. So as far as I'm concerned, if those problems are going to be solved by that point, it actually takes away a lot of the objections that have been levelled against this development. So I am actually happy for the local community that potentially those drainage problems are going to be solved, and we have a date when that's likely to happen.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Dartnell, sorry.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to understand that I can see that the Grampian condition was going to be 2028 and it's been brought back to the end of 2027, which implies there's a plan in place, but there's no detail about what that plan is and what the timelines are on that plan. I know from other projects that I've been involved in with Severn Trent Water, the timescales are often very large and also quite variable. So things, projects are lengthy, and this is obviously a difficult one. It's not something that's easily resolved.
Yeah, so whilst we don't necessarily have a programme of works, I can read you what we've received from Severn Trent Asset Protection Team, Chief Engineer at Severn Trent Water. The question was posed to them saying, please provide details of the planned improvement works, including scope, location and indicative timeline. Their response was, the proposed solution is to deliver a rising main upgrade to allow for greater discharge from the Hadnell pumping station, separate two key points of service, surface water inflow and infiltration into the foul gravity sewer from recent development, rehabilitate a section of the gravity system to reduce inflow and infiltration, and upgrade the pumps at the SPS site. The second question was confirm whether funding and approvals for these works are secured. Their answer was funding has been approved. So in terms of, our surety that the works are going to happen, we're there. That test is met for us.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
I would agree with the Chair's view. I think we've had conflict of interest here now. Not interest, but we've had different viewpoints coming through it. One has just emerged now, which has unnerved us. You've got the guarantee from Severn Trent that work's going to be done. Member of the public's given us information here stating not to agree to it, to actually campaign a member for it as well. So we've got two different viewpoints here we've got to consider. So I think we need to defer this to further clarity from Severn Trent.
I think, to be clear, Severn Trent are a reputable body. I think most of us appreciate there's other things going on, but they are the water authority for this area, and we have a comment to the local planning authority from the chief engineer. That is a very, I think the council feels very confident that there shouldn't be a contrary view. We've not been provided the evidence that was just raised in, the last hour. So I think we have to be very careful to, otherwise we don't actually have this evidence in front of us, but we have a very clear, we would happily rely on this piece that, this comment from Severn Trent that we have.
Just to confirm, what are the risks of these package of works not happening, where the development doesn't happen? The condition is there to prevent development being built in advance of a suitable drainage network. I appreciate its preoccupation, but as I said before, the realism of a developer building houses without any surety of works happening are probably quite slim.
Yeah, I'm going to contribute. So I think my sense is that I understand officers' caution, and I absolutely accept the caution around very late evidence which we haven't actually seen. We're just hearing it verbally. I absolutely get that. Having said that, and actually based partly on what the officer has just said, there is no urgency to build. I think a deferral is perfectly in order to, in my mind, to clarify what's going on, because in this particular case, I'm not comfortable with it because I don't like the fact we've got last minute evidence which wasn't made available to officers when they drew up this report. But I think on this occasion, it doesn't feel very risky to me because that's my feeling.
I would just raise the risk, which I did before, about the risk of non-determination. We could end up at appeal with this if we do defer, particularly, and I think we could have costs because we have a comment from Severn Trent that clearly says we are happy for this with a condition.
Can we? It's been suggested that we ask: is there a copy of this email that we can see? And can you tell us who it came from? Councillor Dartnell.
A question, please. So the granting conditions talks about delaying occupation until or from the end of 2027 if all the conditions have not been met by Severn Trent Water, so that the sewage flooding problem is not resolved by then. What's the situation in terms of beginning work to actually build the development? Let's say we gave permission today for the development. What would happen in terms of the undertaking for Severn Trent Water to resolve these issues in comparison with the developer, in comparison, sort of in conjunction with all the parties? And I'm also thinking about Councillor Owen's comments that it might, in some way provide a service to people of Hagnall if this has to be expedited in some way. I mean, I know it's an issue that hopefully Severn Trent Water are dealing with anyway, but is there any element in, that the development there won't be spades in the ground until there is movement on this work?
There's not a condition which would specifically deal with that scenario, but there are a whole host of pre-commencement conditions. So before a spade is in the ground, the council need to be the developer would need to come to the council with a discharge of conditions application. There are some conditions to do with drainage, but that is more so in relation to sustainable urban drainage. I think in terms of kind of trying to put the pressure on Severn Trent, I think that the fact that there are planning permissions which have been granted but undevelopable would add far more pressure than a whole host of refused application on the basis that, let's just get it done, Severn Trent, come on. Whereas I think that having those planning permissions that you've then got the developer pressure, you've got the local authority pressure from a various number of services involved, and then local councillor and all of that interest as well.
Okay, members, do we have any proposals? One, Councillor Hobbs.
So I'd like to go back to the points which are made, which is a proposal to defer based on insufficient or conflicting information from Severn Trent in order to prove that so the reason why this is important, because I think that needs to be made clear, is because there's concerns about sewage water, foul water, which is Severn Trent have acknowledged the severity of these problems in the past, and there's conflicting information from multiple parties on how to, or whether this problem can be resolved, and how to resolve, I suppose, because if you can't resolve it, then the method is the aspect. And I think because this is a Grampian condition, there is a certain lack of urgency to put the application forward. So I think that would be my proposal.
Okay, I think, can I?
Yes. Yep. Thank you, Councillor. I think, did you say reason for deferral is lack of urgency? I don't think we can accept that as a reason for deferral.
No, I suppose the reason for deferral would be that there's insufficient information about foul drainage, sewage water specifically, which Severn Trent has recognised severity of the problems, and they've told the Shropshire Council that this is a problem which they can solve within a certain timeline, and yet they've contacted Hagnall Parish Council and saying that do not build buildings in this area. And by saying that, they're basically saying that they can't solve the problem. So there's a conflicting information there.
Okay, I think planning officers have mentioned, whilst this is new information, no one has had sight of this. Severn Trent have commented on the application and they are happy with the granting condition. This will prevent any occupation of the dwellings until the scheme of works has been completed. There's also the risk of the applicant appealing for non-determination. If they do appeal for non-determination and the inspector does look at it and we are acting unreasonable, there is a risk of cost to the council. So I just remind members to bear that in mind when considering deferral.
Just to add, our emails from the chief engineer, and it sounds like that email is from a communications officer. I think the chief engineer would be, I suspect, the person who would be providing the comments on whether it's acceptable or not, rather than the communications manager.
So Rowley?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. We got emails from the chief engineer. Effectively, what we've got, whilst it's not really our problem, it needs to be sorted out. There's a whistleblower within Severn Trent who's realised there's an issue with a problem in Hadnall, and Severn Trent really need to get to the bottom of that. That then can clear up us as a committee who are concerned about this, and I think we should go with it.
Okay, thank you. Final comment, then I'm going to move this to. Yes, okay.
Just wondering, just thinking about, there's a section 106 process that would need to be followed through following any committee resolution to approve. Could a recommendation be made that, prior to formal approval, confirmation from Severn Trent is made, and if confirmation from Severn Trent is that a package of works is committed, is funded, then the committee resolution is to proceed on the same basis as what the report outlines. And if it doesn't, it would come back to committee.
That feels like a helpful contribution. Committee members, I hope you understand that the officers are looking to protect the council here, and at the same time, I think the whole committee is very concerned at this sudden turn of events. If we could you just put that again as a suggestion, because if that resolves that issue for us, then maybe that allows us to move on.
Yes, so perhaps I just might be able to help with this one a bit, but resolution to grant subject to confirmation from Severn Trent that a package of improvement works is achievable and deliverable prior to 31st of December 2027. That achieves what we're intending it to achieve, doesn't it?
So we have a proposal for a defer. We have a proposal from an officer, which will then need to be supported by a member. I'm happy to put that so that we get a chance to vote on it. Yes, unless Councillor Epps wants to withdraw and take that proposal.
I have no objections to the design, so I'd be prepared to withdraw based on those conditions which provide legal protections.
Thank you. So we now have a. So are you proposing to accept subject to that condition? Is that your proposal?
Yeah, I think I would be. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a seconder. Because we have, I realise we're going on very late, committee, but equally, I think because we've got perhaps bogged down in an unfortunate term, in the drainage issues, I don't want to close debate on any other issues. But if people are minded not to speak and nobody is putting up their hand, then I will move it to a vote. Councillor Radford.
Apologies. BBC News article 12th of June. Severn Trent openly admits that it discovered the local pumping station could become overwhelmed because too much water is entering the system at once, including rainwater, groundwater and wastewater. It quotes that it is intending on starting works to sort that out in the future, but it would look at some short-term measures to protect homes. I guess my question is, have they implemented anything short-term to protect those homes? But they are acknowledging in that article.
I'm afraid we are now introducing new arguments and new evidence, and I'm not going to have that, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm going to move it to a vote. So up to you.
Yeah. My mind, it's to grant planning permission subject to the conditions, obligations in the officer report, plus subject to Severn Trent confirming that the proposed works are capable of being undertaken.
So, yes, basically, if you could reword, if you can repeat, Ollie, what you said explicitly.
Did that sum it up? Yeah. Okay, so that was. Yeah, so, yeah, okay. So that was proposed by councillor Ebbs, seconded by. Okay, please can you confirm whether you're for, against, or abstain voted? Andy Davis. For. Rosemary Dartnell.
For.
Greg Ebbs.
For.
Brian Evans.
Abstain.
Adam Pfeiffer.
For.
Gary Groves.
Against.
Ed Potter.
Against.
Rose Radford.
Against.
Carl Rowley.
Against.
Mark Owen.
For.
Julian Dean.
I'm going to abstain.
Five. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, committee. That passes. Yes, we're going to take another 5-minute break.
Actually, just one. To do the games, the whole thing, the whole games. That's what I'm just trying to say.
Huh? I don't know. I don't know. I think I lost.
let's press on. So I believe we are now on item 8, electricity substation, Uffington, Shrewsbury.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for the installation of a battery energy storage system and associated infrastructure at Uffington, near Shrewsbury. There are some late representations. There is, you'll note in the committee report that one of the conditions didn't have any wording, and I provided the wording, the proposed wording now. It's for the submission of a detailed battery safety management plan to be submitted for approval, and it is anticipated that if planning permission is granted, that plan would be devised in consultation with the fire service, and also they will be consulted on the plan as well as submitted. There's also an update that's been provided by the applicant in relation to safety matters, which has been submitted by a member of the Institution of Fire Engineers, and I assume that members have read that. And then there's a further public representation which has been made, and I've summarised the matters raised in the late representations. So in terms of the application, it's on a greenfield site. You can see the location of the site in relation to the A49 Shrewsbury bypass and the A5 to the south in green. Access is from a public highway to the northeast. The application site includes the site where the development will take place, which is the southwest parcel of land. Access will be taken from the public highway across the existing field access, as shown in red, and you can see the two proposed passing places for construction traffic. As well, to the north of the site, you'll see where the existing electricity substation is, and I'll show some photographs of that. The nearest properties are to the east. One here, and one here. There's also a property just on the side of the access road here, highway. So in terms of the site, it includes a battery storage compound, which is on the eastern side of the site. You'll see the line of the former canal to the east as well in blue. And then there's also a transformer and a substation, which is the darker coloured plant shown at the northwest side of the site. There's a railway embankment that is along the southern boundary of the site as shown, and then beyond that is the A5. And this shows the proposed landscaping of the site, which would include the retention of existing trees and also infill planting to the east and to the northwest of the site to provide further screening. This shows the elevations of the battery storage units. And then the sections of the substation and the transformer units. This is a fire safety strategy plan. You won't be able to see all the detail of it, but it effectively confirms the measures which have been incorporated in the design of the scheme to demonstrate that it complies with the guidance of the fire services in relation to accesses, water hydrants, passing places, spacing between battery storage units, distances to occupied buildings, distances to any combustible vegetation, and access requirements for fire rescue emergency vehicles. And it's confirmed that the site complies with all of those criteria. I'll just talk you through the actual site through photographs. This is the access from the public highway through an existing field access, which will be upgraded and resurfaced. The operational traffic and the construction traffic will pass along the existing field. You can see on the right hand side of the right hand photograph the boundary of the existing electricity substation, and another photograph of that as well, and that forms the context of the site with Hormond Hill in the background. This is the existing canal crossing over which the construction and the operational traffic would go. Canals to the left and to the right, and then this is the actual site of the development, which is a like I say, green field with you can see the railway embankment at the far side with a railway with a train going across. This is looking to the east towards the canal, and you might just be able to see the nearest property of the manse within the trees, the other side of the canal. This is a photograph looking to the west of the site. So in terms of the application, it's for battery storage, which supports an increase in renewable energy. Proposal provides 14% biodiversity net gain. Acceptable arrangements have been made in relation to protected species and great crested newt. No objections have been raised by technical consultees. During the construction phase, there will be a peak of 4 two-way HGV movements per day, and any construction and operational issues can be controlled by planning condition. In addition, concerns over safety of these types of plant can be dealt with through the submission and approval of a detailed battery safety management plan, which is the way in which other applications of this type have been dealt with throughout the country, including at Peel. On this basis, officers recommending that planning permission is granted.
Thank you very much. We have 4 speakers. The first is Rob Story.
It's the gate, that one, yeah.
Rob, you have 3 minutes from when you begin.
Okay, thank you. It's easy to get seduced, I think, by the green credentials of this proposal, but it's be under no illusion that it's a profit-motivated exercise by a billion-dollar American corporation called CCI, who are whole owners of L48, which are the local agents here. I think you're in a bit of an invidious position being asked to approve this scheme because it's full of risk, which is very hard to quantify. You've got a new and emerging technology. There are globally, there aren't a lot of these things in relative terms, and you're being asked to approve that on the basis of sort of unproven technology. But it's in an unregulated environment. There is no dedicated set of regulations for a BESS scheme. There are lots of regulations bedded in other acts, which are kind of a bit of a jigsaw puzzle and ideal to fall down the cracks when things go wrong. And it's been implemented by a contractor who has no operating BESS schemes on his books as we speak. So the product is a bit uncertain. It's very unregulated compared to what it should be because of the risks involved. And the company has no expertise in having done this before, no track record. That sounds to me a good recipe for being a bit of a disaster. And it actually made me think a lot of Grenfell when I was looking at what this thing does if and when it goes up in flames because of the toxicity of the materials that are being used. Wind in the right direction, we're talking about Uffington having to be evacuated. And I don't think the impact of what will happen if it goes wrong has really been thought through and understood. There's a couple of other interesting things with this as well. The house that you talked about, which is the nearest, the manse, that's actually belonged to the Burton family who are leasing this land. It belongs to the Longer estate, and the Burtons have been there since 1400. And that house was built in 1865 for the Dowager Kate Burton. If his great-great-grandma was still living there, I promise you this battery wouldn't be going at the end of a garden, but it is. There are 9 houses less than half a metre from this development. The manse, Harley House, Chimneys, Manse Lodge, and 2 properties up on Benchy Lane. Less than a kilometre away is the start of Uffington, which has got 287 souls. And the bit you mentioned about the 4 HGVs, I find that quite astonishing, really. I don't know where they got them from. The 4 HGVs in their report are 36 tonners, and they're putting a 10-acre site with a concrete pad and a 4-metre concrete wall. You're not going to do that with 4 vehicles a day.
You are now over time, I'm afraid.
Okay. The reason I asked for that there is they don't have permission to cross that canal. It doesn't belong to them, so they can't access the site.
Thank you. I think I'll move on and then we'll respond to the points after the speakers. Councillor Darren Robson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair and members, for allowing me to speak. Before addressing the detail, it is important for members to understand the strength of local feeling in Uffington. There is widespread anxiety and a genuine fear among residents that this proposal may already be seen as a foregone conclusion. I should be clear, there is no support for this development within the parish. Opposition is unanimous. Uffington is a small rural village. Many residents, particularly older and more vulnerable members of our community, have chosen to live here because it offers a quiet, safe environment away from industrial development and associated risk. This application threatens not only the character of the village, but the sense of safety and well-being that defies daily life here. The proposed battery energy storage system is, in reality, an industrial energy installation placed within an agricultural and village setting. It would introduce high fencing, security, lighting, industrial plant, noise and operational vehicle movements. This industrial character is entirely out of keeping with its surroundings and would permanently alter the rural nature of the area. Our concerns, however, go far beyond visual impact. Battery energy storage systems carry well-documented risks, including thermal runaway, major fire, toxic gas release, and explosion. When incidents happen, the consequences are severe, requiring substantial exclusion zones and specialist emergency response. The Parish Council's position is clear. The level of risk is simply too high for a village setting. Uffington is served by narrow, rural lanes that has limited access for emergency services. The village also includes elderly and less mobile residents. In the event of a serious incident, it is unclear how evacuation, emergency access, or public safety could be effectively managed. These are practical, real-world concerns expressed by our residents. It is also important to note that the site lies downwind of the prevailing wind direction, placing the village directly at risk from smoke, toxic gases, or airborne contaminants in the event of an incident. National planning policy is clear. The National Planning Policy Framework, including its provisions from paragraph 198 onwards, requires that development should not create unacceptable risks to human health, land stability, or the natural environment. Planning is intended to protect and enhance the natural environment, not expose it to potential harm. In this context, concerns around ground conditions, pollution pathways, and long-term environmental damage are significant. The potential consequences of failure at this site could be extensive and enduring in a sensitive rural location.
you've
Sorry.
run out of time. Sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any points of clarification? Go on then. Excuse me. Sorry, we're just. Oh, I beg your pardon. Is it? Can we perhaps? It may well be that we can take it at the end, and then if we do need to come back to the members of the public, we will do. Councillor Mallon.
Before we start, can I have the slide with the site layout with the batteries and the site transformer? That one, thank you. It's a few of them, isn't there? No, there's another one. Or if you could just zoom in, that'll do. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll start. So worldwide, BESS sites have failure rates of approximately 0.2 per gigawatt hour annually, as per the Electric Power Research Institute data tracking. For the 200 megawatt hour unit proposed for Uffington, that translates to 0.04 or 1 in 25, or 2 failures in its 50-year lifetime. The leading manufacturer DNV has publicly stated that at least 1 failure should be expected in the lifetime of a project. The bigger the battery, the more cells used, the higher the risk. The 5 biggest batteries on the planet have had 5 fires in the last 4 years between them. The largest in the UK, Thurrock, at 600 megawatt hours, caught fire and burned for over a day back in February this year. BESS fires produce lots of heat, flame, smoke and gases. Newer lithium iron phosphate, or LFP, is less prone to fire than lithium ion, but has a higher explosion risk, which can and has caused injury to firefighters. The Thurrock site used LFP cells and still caught fire. Adjacent cells can enter thermal runaway and burn in a cascading failure if cooling water is not applied quickly. The proposal just about meets the American NFPA 855 minimum separation of 3 metres, but falls well short of our own UK National Fire Chief Council guideline of 6 metres when there's no additional thermal barriers. The toxic gases produced in the BESS fire can kill or injure. These include hydrogen fluoride, phosphor fluoride, hydrogen chloride, amongst many others. The smoke plume causes a fallout of heavy metals, including cobalt, nickel, copper, and manganese, that can cause severe health conditions and long-term environmental contamination. Another NFCC guideline has been ignored is the requirement for 2 separate site access points. The site plan shows a primary and secondary access. However, the site is approached down a proposed single track lane from the northeast, downwind of the prevailing wind. To get to the secondary access, one must pass the primary on the northeast, traverse the full length of the site to reach that access. The smoke and fume conditions requiring a secondary access would preclude getting to it past those other access points. The track is yet to be built and will require the installation of, I believe, a motorway standard bridge across the Shropshire and Newport Canal for HGV and fire vehicle access. To date, there has been no public response to the landowner, the Canal and River Trust, to their request for design detail on the bridge, let alone permission from them post-construction and crossing their land. NFCC guidance says sites should be a minimum of 1 kilometre away from habitation, yet multiple properties are well within, including a couple just 200 metres away. Also, the southeast suburbs of Shrewsbury are just slightly over 1 kilometre away, and the very busy nexus of the A5, A49, Preston roundabout and the railway line are also highly vulnerable. It is a huge problem. Multiple fire units are required to control the spread of the fire. If the fire shuts down the A5 and or the Preston roundabout, how would support arrive from Wellington, Telford or Bridgenorth fire stations with the A5 closed and the side roads clogged with diverting traffic? There are no specific UK standards or regulations for BESS facilities. There's a DEFRA consultation ongoing, but no results as yet. The US standard only covers thermal abuse, not electrical abuse, which is a far more difficult abuse to manage. The NFCC guidelines are not mandatory. Fire authorities are expected to be made mandatory consultations from April, but are not yet so. Spoken to senior officers at Shropshire Fire, and they are still developing their policies, techniques and procedures for BESS fires. I'm not aware of any Shropshire Council contingency planning or evacuation plans for residents at this time. Firefighting causes large amounts of contaminated water runoff that needs to be contained. I could find no reference to containment mechanisms despite proximity to the Shropshire Canal and the Severn. The Environment Agency guidance states that highly polluting chemicals and batteries could enter groundwater and firewater or rainfall. Applicants should ensure robust mitigations in place for containment of this water. It is accepted perhaps that if the batteries burn out and is likely water will be used to cool neighbouring containers, could enter burning containers through runoff, we would suggest the surface water drainage system incorporates containment. I've not found reference to the implementation of such containment in the application. So I'm speaking fast, I have a lot to get out here. I do see parallels to the Grenfell Tower tragedy, another rapid deployment of novel green technology, approved by councils without full visibility of safety issues, with suppliers accused of providing questionable safety data, with many individuals and organisations now subject to criminal investigation. With the current state of best safety, they should only be built well away from human habitation and vulnerable ecology, with uncompromised access to fire response. On that basis, I believe you should reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any points of clarification? No. Okay, so we'll move on to yes. Yeah, let's take the response at this stage.
Just a couple of things. It's recognised in the application that the applicant doesn't own the land, but they have served notice on the landowner, on the two landowners. And in relation to Councillor Mallon's comments about the canal crossing, the Canal and River Trust have been consulted on the application. They have raised no objections, but they have recommended that details are provided on the methodology for crossing the canal restoration line. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to Nick Williams. You have 3 minutes from when you begin speaking.
Thank you. Afternoon, members. Battery energy storage systems are vital in our transition to a low carbon future. The proposal will store renewable energy and help balance the grid, reducing reliance on fossil fuels. National policy gives significant weight to such developments, and this scheme aligns with the NPPF and Shropshire's local plan policies. The site is designed in line with the National Fire Chiefs Council guidance, which does recommend 2 separate access points to a battery site to allow firefighters to approach from different directions if wind conditions change in the unlikely event of a fire. This does not mean 2 separate entrances from the public highway. It means 2 access points into the battery compound itself, so that crews can enter from opposite sides of the enclosure if required. North and south access gates and routes into the compound have been provided. The northernmost battery unit sits over 70 metres from the entrance into the field which contains the compound, leaving more than sufficient space to circumvent the compound to the southern access in the event of a fire. Shropshire Fire Service has been consulted and raises no objections. A detailed battery safety management plan is a requirement of planning condition 5, which will require sign-off from the Fire Service and Shropshire Council. The applicant has already engaged with the Fire Service and will continue to work with them to ensure that their requirements are met. Concerns about construction traffic have been raised. The transport statement shows a peak of 4 two-way HGV movements per day, which will be managed under a construction traffic management plan. Once operational, the site will be unmanned with only 1 or 2 maintenance visits per month. Highways officers confirm there is no significant impact on road safety. The noise assessment predicts low impact, even in the worst case scenario. An acoustic fence and post-commissioning noise checks are secured by conditions. The dominant noise source remains the A5 and the A49, not the best, which will typically operate up to 8 hours a day. A biodiversity net gain is provided and includes native tree and hedge planting. The proposal is set lower in the landscape than the surrounding railway and canal embankments, which provide excellent screening of the site along with the surrounding tree cover. Any effect on the value of neighbouring properties is not a material consideration. The nearest properties to the east sit closer to the much larger, visually prominent and continually operational main Shrewsbury electricity substation, which the proposal will connect to. Finally, members should note that all technical consultees raise no objections subject to conditions. This is a well-designed, policy-compliant proposal that supports national and local climate objectives. In summary, the concerns raised have been addressed through design, consultation and enforceable conditions. The benefits supporting renewable energy, reducing carbon emissions and enhancing biodiversity are clear and significant. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm paying attention to the clock. Thank you very much. Any questions from members? Yeah.
Does the applicant own the land from the gate right to the compound? Do you own the land right through?
So the applicant themselves don't own the land. The applicant has an option to lease over the field to the north and the field to the south, and the Canal and River Trust own the crossing point.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
And I have a question. So a couple of days ago, there was some news around how the government was going to be managing connectivity for sites such as this, as I understand it, and the queuing, they're changing the nature of the queuing system. Does that have any effect on this particular application?
Yeah, there's currently a grid review in place, but I understand you've got a.
It's in gate 2 at the moment.
Yeah.
Which means.
So we've had an offer. We won't know full certainty of connection dates until that comes out.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the contributions from the floor. So officers, if you want to respond to any of that before we open up to members. Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. No comments. Okay. Open the floor to members. Yes.
So in your report, you mentioned they don't own the land, they're procuring it. So can you explain that, please? Who actually owns the land and.
It's often the case. It's often the case where, for example, a housing developer wouldn't necessarily own the land. They would have an option agreement on the land, such that if planning permission is granted, then they would take control over it, either through ownership or through leasing it. I understand that this one, they'll be leasing the land from the owner. This is a time limited proposal of 45 years, so I suspect that after that period they will be leasing it, and then after that period they will then return it back to the landowner.
So the landowner is in agreement with this development?
So, as part of any planning application, an applicant has to formally notify the landowner that they're submitting the application, to give the landowner the opportunity to make comments. And in this case, we have, and we've also consulted with the Canal and River Trust, of course, as well, because of the canal, but also they are one of the landowners, and they have made comments. So it gives it the opportunity for the landowner to make comments. Yes.
Yes, their comments on your sort of 4.1.15 here from both the Canal and River Trust, and also sort of Shrewsbury Newport canals. There's more reservations than acceptance, I'd say, with that. They're asking lots of questions. They want lots of recommendations and conditions as a consequence of using their land. Has that been explored further?
You said that last point.
They put a lot of conditions on there. And would that be part of the actual agreement? That these conditions are actually adhered to?
Well, there's two matters here. They have not objected, and they can object if they want to, but they've chosen not to because they consider that the matters or the concerns that they have raised can be dealt with through conditions. They've also had discussions with the applicant as well already, irrespective of the application. But also, as the landowner, they are perfectly entitled to prevent access to their land, irrespective of whether planning permission is in place. It's up to them to decide. And so those conditions, those discussions will be ongoing if planning permission is granted.
Any of that? Councillor Bradford?
With regards to the 4 metre high acoustic barrier and going round the situation, the GLVAIA, got it right, in the report doesn't seem to take into consideration viewpoints from the towpath or from water boats, so you're down the canal path. Other receptors seem to have been mentioned, and it could be that PROWS is exactly that. I don't know what that means. So, but has there been any kind of contemplation made about viewpoints from those walking along the canal or in a boat towards the site?
Well, of course, at the moment, the canal is a disused canal. It doesn't have any canal users on it. It's a protected route to allow for its protection so that it can be restored, but that would obviously be a long-term kind of project. The the proposal does include tree or landscape planting on the eastern side of the site, between the site and the canal, which will obviously develop in time and over a number of years, which would add to the existing planting as well, which is in place, which you may recall on the photographs is quite a substantial planting between the site and the canal.
Unfortunately, higher than 4 metres.
Well, I don't know what the timescales have been for the restoration of the canal, but it's obviously a project which will be many years in the making.
Owen? Thank you, Chair. This technology isn't that new. I would say it's actually a maturing technology, and large numbers of BESS have been installed right across the world. Many of them a great deal larger than this particular application. The maturing part of it is that the safety systems nowadays built into each of the units are fairly good. As far as the risk is concerned, for the last century, we've had large tanks of flammable gases in the middle of residential areas, whether it be liquids or gases. And I don't see that actually preventing filling stations from being given planning permission. So I'm minded to agree with the officer's recommendation and support this particular application.
Thank you. I'm taking myself next, and then it'd be Councillor Rowley. So first point I wanted to just stress that the first speaker from the floor with regards to the nature of the speculative development, and I agree. I think there's an issue around the fact that balancing the grid is being left in the hands of private development. And in an ideal world, I would rather see that done by by public services, but that's not the world we're in. And this balancing is an absolutely essential part of being able to move to renewable energy, because we know that renewable energy is intermittent, and therefore there is a market in buying it expensive, buying it cheap, selling it expensive, and that's what these batteries will be tapping into. But they are also providing a service in terms of making that transition possible. So whilst I appreciate that point, nevertheless, I think that this is it's a legitimate investment given the circumstances. On the safety issues, I think the same. Councillor Mallon talked about the 50-50 risk. That same chart tells us that there's been a 97% reduction in risk over recent years, and that we have a significantly improved safety record, and the helpful that the officer pointed us to the late submissions that also reinforce that. And finally, the fact that all of the consultees are comfortable with this, including the fire authorities. And so whilst I'm absolutely not trying to suggest that there is no risk, clearly there's a hazard associated with these installations. That hazard is being, in my view, appropriately managed. So I too will be supporting this application. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to confirm, I got a couple of points, but I want to confirm the first is my understanding there's only one access, and that's to the north, but the agent described the second access to the south. I've been through just frankly looking because I wasn't aware of an access to the south of the site. Can we confirm that there is actually 2 access points?
Yes. The requirement for the recommendation for 2 access points means to the actual battery storage compound, not to the actual site. Here we've got 1 access to the site from the public highway. However, then when you get to the site, zoom out. Yeah. You can either go in track here, there's a gateway here to the north, and then the alternative entrance is here to the south. So you will either go in directly to the north, around this track here, south, or around the side here to the south gates. So there's 2 entrances into the battery compound, which is the recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a grey area, because really there is only 1 access to the site, and that's the northwest approach. Taking into account predominantly this country is affected by southwesterly winds. The weather at the moment, 15 degrees outside, middle of winter. That's because we're drawing air up from the southwest. If this one of these was to go up, that smoke could be basically blowing at the only access to that site. Fire crews will be able to get absolutely nowhere near that site if needed to, if an incident broke out. And we're not, if an incident was to break out one of these, we're not just talking 1 or 2 fire engines, we're talking 10 fire engines, a whole incident unit, and they just won't be able to get anywhere near. So on that basis, I'm not happy with that site access. The site also sits on the zone 2 and 3 flood area, which is a big concern because then that means that there could be contamination runoff into the River Severn. And again, if there is an incident, these things don't go out with water. The only way this will go out is by burning itself out, which then gives you the possibility of it will run away and then the whole thing going up. What the fire crews will do is use water to try and cool down the other batteries to try and stop them that coming. Effectively, what you've got then is contamination runoff. To the northwest of the site is a brook that runs into the River Severn. So you've got contamination runoff into the River Severn and the brook. My concerns is whilst I do take into account the chair and Councillor Owen's comments that there are safety mechanisms in place, it's the what if one of these does go up and the environmental impact on the local area could be absolutely devastating, and that would be my grounds to propose an objection.
Thank you. Do I see any more councillors? No. So I can't remember. Did I propose? Oh, you proposed. Did anybody? We have a proposal against. Did anybody? I said I was. Okay. Well, then we have to vote on the against proposal first. Yeah. Sorry, do we have a second to the against proposal?
Sorry. Just for clarification, we've got a proposer to accept.
That's what I'm checking. He said he was minded, so we didn't actually have that proposal yet.
Okay, but I can say we can't list direct negative otherwise.
I'm just trying to be fair in terms of voting on the first actual proposal that is made. So the first actual proposal that was made was effectively to reject. So we'll vote on that. It comes to the same thing, doesn't it? Effectively, it's on what grounds?
Environmental impact from this instance.
Yeah. Obviously, if members decide to refuse the application, we need to make sure that the refusal reason is robust and defensible. In terms of how other applications have been dealt with at appeal, I can find no record of any recent ones that have been turned down by inspectors on the grounds of them being safe. In fact, there's a scheme in Wolverhampton. The inspector has said no evidence to lead me to believe that such facilities will be unsafe. Scheme in Drakelow, I'm satisfied that measures will be put in place will be acceptable. Public inquiry in Leeds, talking about the fact that there has been just one fire, United Kingdom, and there were 161 facilities. And this is the inspector talking at a public inquiry based on evidence. No casualties, no pollution of watercourses, and that the plume was considered to be negligible in terms of toxic gas consideration. Plenty of other appeal decisions based upon the fact that as long as there is a scheme for detailed battery management, which we have here, there is no reason to turn them down on the grounds of safety concerns. Just to bear that in mind if members are minded to refuse on grounds of safety implications.
Thank you. Can I make a suggestion which may help us? If we were to vote on a proposal to accept first, then there is no issue over, and we'll find out which way the vote is going to go. If we then have a situation where the committee is minded to reject, then we'll have to dig into exactly what reasons we're going to be putting to that. But perhaps if we vote on a proposal to accept first, it will simplify things. You're happy with that? Thank you. So if you withdraw your proposal just for the time being, thank you very much, Councillor Riley, for being helpful. So we have a proposal to accept. Is that seconded? Thank you very much.
Can I just Ray's point, that information would have been better said earlier.
Fair point.
Because I think it's just swayed a lot of decisions.
Thank
But
you
if
for
we'd
that.
have been told that earlier, rather than wait until it looks like we're going against officers' recommendation, then give us that. Yeah.
I'd say I will just in defence of officers, because we were at the point where we were looking at reasons, perhaps that was the point at which looking at what happened in appeals was relevant. But I do take your point that perhaps hearing that earlier would have been very helpful. Let's move to the vote. I do take your point.
Okay, we have a proposal to grant planning permission in accordance with officer recommendations, subject to the conditions set out in the report, section 106 agreement. Please confirm whether you're for, against, or abstain. Andy Davis? Against. Rosemary Dartnell?
For.
Greg Ebbs?
For.
Brian Evans?
Against.
Adam Pfeiffer?
For.
Gary Groves?
For.
Ed Potter?
For.
Rosie Radford?
For.
Carl Rowley?
Against.
Mark Owen?
For.
Julian Dean?
For.
Say for the against.
Thank you very much, committee. So we have resolved that one. We move on to our final item. If anybody wishes to leave at this stage, please do quickly. Yes. I think we'll make it. I think we'll make it. We've got half an hour, folks, before we get kicked out of the building, but I think we'll be okay. Okay, folks, let's press on. Thank you. So, item 923 Cross Street. This is to read. This is. I'll let the officers explain what it's for.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to keep this really short because you have heard it before. There is one light rep which covers very similar issues to those already raised. This has come back to committee just to try and allay some confusion. There were quite a number of reasons for refusal, so we just could do with some clarity on some of those and possibly a bit of consideration as to whether some of them are sustainable at appeal, given the contents of the report, which I'm sure you've all read.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. Right.
Well, in the report.
Okay, so do we have any? We do have speakers. So we have Roger Blake, please. So you have 3 minutes from when you start speaking.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak. Just to reiterate, I own the building adjoining the one that's up for proposal, and I've run a business from there for 31 years. My concerns are pretty much the waste management. In the development management report from the committee on the 18th of November, the bin storage area is described as a shared area located within the rear alleyway. A more correct description is a collection of bins abandoned on a public right-of-way in a heritage zone of historical character linking two of Oswestry's main shopping streets. Star Passageway must be treated in planning terms as a public pedestrian route. A development that obstructs or materially interferes with public use is contrary to the NPPF, Para 106.110, which require safe, convenient pedestrian access and protection of existing routes. Using a public pedestrian way as a waste storage facility is fundamentally inconsistent with these requirements. The planning officer states that the alleyway is wide enough for 3 bins and showed a photo of the alleyway. However, 1/3 of the alley is inset cobblestones, which is not suitable for bins to be stored on. The wheels just run off them. So that creates a much smaller area. The officer also mentioned that bins were already stored in the alleyway, but these are the bins of Aroma Cafe, who are subject to stringent food hygiene standards. There are no other residential bins in that alleyway. Star Passageway is within a heritage zone and is an integral part of the historical character of Oswestry. As such, any modification in this area must be carefully managed to ensure the preservation and enhancement of its historical significance. Developments within such zones must demonstrate that they preserve and enhance the historic environment. The amenity space, the roofs providing access to the property are under separate ownership, so the occupants have no rights to even stand outside of their doors. Approving a residential development with no amenities, no external amenities like this, would set a negative precedent for further substandard conversions in Oswestry Town Centre. There are other developments with minimal amenity provision in the town centre, but at least the residents there are able to step out onto publicly owned land or footpaths. The current plan will lead to long-term pressures and increase the likelihood of disputes over unauthorised use of the space and complaints and enforcement challenges due to the poor living environment. If 23 Cross Street had not been divided with the ground floor now separated from the upper floors, this application would make more sense. But there must be more suitable buildings in Oswestry for safe, acceptable conversion to HMO, which meet the needs of planning policies and housing demand.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? No, in which case, let's move on to Aaron Roberts. I'll be reading. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, I thought you must have been Aaron, but you're not, so apologies.
Thank you, Chair. So many apologies. As for courtesy to the committee and applicant, I would have wished to be present today. Oswestry Town Council objected to the application following its resubmission, having held a neutral position on the first application. This is a key commercial street which has been targeted for regeneration and has received investment. It is difficult to see how the development could have a positive impact on the amenity of future residents and neighbouring businesses. It is acknowledged that officers and members need to deal with planning application and material planning matters rather than the outcome and the experience of people on a day-to-day basis. The council accepts the waste management officer at Shropshire Council is happy with the waste management statement. It is unclear whether this has been followed up with a site visit given the reconsideration of the application. However, Oswestry Town Council members are concerned that the proposed approach for dealing with waste remains inadequate and poses fire safety risks to adjacent properties. The bins will be next to a fire escape. Access to the building and egress from the building has been referenced in the officer report and was discussed at the last meeting. The route is over the flat roof of another building and there is a need to protect escape routes and ensure that these routes and roofs meet the necessary fire safety standards. As the owners of the main car parks in the town, the council are concerned that they are being cited in multiple applications as providing suitable alternative parking. The public car park further up the road is designated for shoppers and visitors to the town, not for residential parking. Our car parks are a community asset and their widespread use for residential parking will have a significant impact on the town's economy. This is one of the reasons we ask for a strategic view as development is happening on a piecemeal basis, with infrastructure requirements not considered. The interpretation of over-intensification of development needs to be adjusted accordingly. There are several similar proposals for the area and their cumulative impact needs to be considered as this has significant impact on the sustainability of Oswestry and particularly Oswestry Town Centre. It is also evident that there is a need for a stronger policy framework to support officers and members in their deliberations and the absence of one is tangible. Local policies and guidelines will benefit developers, elected members and the public.
Thank you. Obviously, we can't ask any questions. So this has been brought back to committee on the basis that officers are struggling to find the appropriate defence of the committee's decision to refuse. So that's what the main discussion is. As you will recall, I was in a minority of one supporting this. I don't plan to reopen the debate entirely unless somebody else says actually they've changed their mind and they would like to see support for this. Then obviously we will put it to a vote, but the main purpose is to see if the committee can help officers with defensible planning reasons for the refusal. Yes.
Just as a suggestion, Chair, if that's the stance that we're taking, I would say when we sit in hearings with other planners, we kind of discuss the reasons so if it's helpful, and that's the tack you want to take in terms of just providing clarity on the reasons. It might be helpful if we went through reason by reason just to get that clarity. If that's members happy with that.
Thank you.
So is that
yes, please.
what you want to do, Chair? Okay. So the first reason was lack of demonstrable demand for HMO accommodation. There's no evidence based for that. That evidence which is on the application file, I would say is hearsay. It does not constitute evidence that we could successfully take to appeal and not lose costs and reasonable behaviour on. So that's the first reason.
Actually, can I suggest you go through them all? Yes. I think otherwise it's
Charge. The second reason was inadequate waste management and alleyway concerns, which I think the speaker was alluding to. My comment on that would be that the waste management officer is happy with the arrangements as proposed, that they are used by neighbouring units. It is a functional space of bins and they won't cause an obstruction. The third reason was over intensification and poor living standards. There are minimum standards here and they are exceeded. So that's quite difficult for us to defend on appeal. Lack of private amenity space, pretty standard arrangement in urban centres. There are lots and lots of buildings on top of shops particularly, whereby they don't have private amenity space because they use the amenity space. It's a life choice, isn't it? City living, I suppose. So that's quite difficult because it's a choice. If you have concerns about lack of private amenity space, certainly in terms of drying, washing, etc. Then you live there, so it's quite difficult to formulate a reason around that. Especially given that there is a dedicated laundry room, and I think that was one of the particular issues. And adequate communal facilities, again, there are internal living standards and this does comply with them. We also have to be careful we're not involving ourselves in matters of licensing, that we are sticking to planning issues. Then there was impact on the conservation area. I think just for clarity, the front windows as proposed are to be replaced with double glazed timber units in a style to match the existing. There is some UPVC windows proposed at the back, but it's conservation area, so it's about harming the character and appearance of the conservation area. It's often quite difficult to argue that rear facing windows contribute to the character of a conservation area, but that is obviously a matter for members. So it was just that clarity we were seeking.
Thank you. So before I open it up, just to sort of, what was I going to try and say? I mean, obviously the committee is within its rights to say no, that's what we're saying, but what we're being told very loud and clear by officers is that there's a significant risk both of losing the appeal and of our refusal being regarded as frivolous. I don't know what the word you used was, but that there would be potential. You didn't use that word. I'm trying to remember what word was used in terms of. I think
I'm trying to use reasonable or unreasonable.
Unreasonable refusal, and that would imply even further costs. Is that what you were suggesting?
I think my suggestion with this number of reasons is that what's possibly happened is a bit of a shopping list, and it is not the case at appeal that the more you throw at something, the more likely it's something to stick. So my advice to you would be to decide which reasons you think are the most important, and kind of sometimes there is a tendency to tag other reasons onto the end of it. My advice would be that is to be avoided.
Okay, thank you. Right, let's open it up and see if we can either come up with reasons or if you want to make other proposals. Yes, Councillor Rowley, of course.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, following on from this, obviously, we do act under a little bit of pressure sometimes, and there is quite a bit of a shopping list there. I've actually whittled it down to 3 objections, and only only one really is on that list, and that's the waste management. The other issues I had really, and I should have brought up at the time really, because they're in conjunction with the Smithfield Hotel, and that's inadequate parking provision. There's no parking whatsoever for this HMO. It sits on a pedestrian area. The only parking that is available is public parking, and there are core strategy policies there that defer against public parking. Do you need me to go through their policies?
Suggestion would be that introducing new reasons now is an absolute 100% way of getting cost awarded against us.
Well, the concern there has been brought back to committee, hasn't it? We could have gone with it in the first instance. Now I've taken some of them off. So some of the ones that were, I've taken them off my list. And like I say, and the reason why I brought up the parking is because it's exactly the same with the Smithfield HMO, called the old HMO, the old Smithfield Hotel. It's exactly the same issue.
Okay. I think, yeah. Can other members come in? I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Councillor Potts, then Councillor, and then sorry. Then
okay. So just going straight, we're trying to look to bolster some of the reasons here. Was one of the reasons intensification over development? No. Yes. Could we go with that one? It's, I don't know. I'm just trying to, where are we at? Or we're gonna have to make it, are we gonna have another vote on it? I don't know.
So I am minded that although it wasn't a reason made by Carl Rowley, it was something which I brought up in the discussion last, which was the impact this development would have on the adjacent business next door, where the owner said that he would consider moving. And given that Oswestry is a bid area with an emphasis on trying to build up sustainable businesses and to maintain existing businesses, could that potentially be a reason? I know it wasn't made by Carl, but it was mentioned in the discussion.
Sorry, I wasn't present at the last committee, so I'd have to refer to members. But if it did form part of the discussion.
Again, I would say, okay, the impact on the neighbouring hotel, what is the impact? What is the land use planning impact?
So at that last meeting, I am either yes.
Sorry. We need to do it.
Oh, apologies. I am minded that I made the vote to abstain, but the gentleman, apologies, I've forgotten the name. Sorry. You brought up the point from the last meeting, which is this would have an irreversible impact on your business, that you would potentially be considering closing or at least moving elsewhere, and your business has been going on for 30 years or something similar, and that this would have a significant, and you hire staff as well, and therefore they may be out of a job if they were forced to move.
So this is, yes. Thank you, Councillor Rock.
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we actually accept this application, because I don't think we don't have supportable objections. That's been made clear by the officer. Over intensification, the standards of the living space given is greater than that which is required, and so on. I think we should approve proposing that.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? We do, because I will second that. Oh, you want to? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we have a proposal. I think frankly we ought to move to a vote. Yes, of course. Yes, yes, you haven't spoken. Yes,
Right.
okay. Yes,
Thanks very much. Yes, very difficult situation. We appreciate that. We were told not to make a bit of a shopping list, but we're very often given a shopping list as reasons why it might be a good idea by the officers. And I appreciate that. I'll come back to the first point that was made about there's no actual demonstrable need for single occupancy rooms in Oswald. There clearly is, because I've done the research, did it last time, done it again, and come up with loads. So that's one thing. Another thing was the impact on Star Passage will be can't be underestimated between Cross Street and Bailey Street. The waste management there, I was down there just the other day. There are bins there. And it's not a very clear passage, and to put more in there, that is another one that we should put on the shopping list. So I would vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all my say.
I'll go on. Final point, but please.
No, because these are actually brought up in the last meeting as well. You know, so we were concerned over the intensification of use of the building. And we thought that could be detrimental to the local area. We were very concerned about the access and fire safety. That was brought up. And the actual, you know, we are actually going to approve something which could endanger the safety and lives of residents who are going to be living in this building by only having one access and egress to the building. I think that's really concerning. There is insufficient private amenity space, which you've identified, even though you stated actually in town centres it's not an issue. In many cases, there might be flats. They might have their own sort of personal living spaces. We're not discussing this yet. This is a totally different case. The waste refusal, which was very brought up. You know, you cannot put public bins, private bins, on public access.
We are now repeating ourselves.
Okay.
Sorry, folks, and it is 10 to 6, and they've got to close the meeting. So I'm going to move it to a vote. I'm sorry. Because
just to be clear, the fire safety stuff is covered by building regulations, and I think that's the points that Charlie was raising earlier about some of the other things are covered by other bits of regulation, and that's where we shouldn't be crossing over.
Okay.
We have a proposal which has been seconded to reverse the previous decision and grant planning permission. Please can you confirm whether you're for or against Councillor Dartnell's proposal to approve planning permission? Subject to the conditions that were set out. Please can you confirm whether you're for, against or abstain? Andy Davis? Against. Rosemary Dartnell?
For.
Greg Gibbs?
Abstain.
Brian Evans?
Against.
Adam Pfeiffer?
Before abstain.
Abstain, is it?
Yes.
Gary Groves?
Against.
Mark Owen?
For.
Ed Potter?
For.
Rosie Radford?
Abstain.
Carl Rowley?
Against.
Julian Dean? For. It's tied.
Okay, so it's my casting vote again.
Yes.
Me, thank you very much, by the way, for 3 casting votes. I'm supporting the application.
Okay, so that motion passes. Chair.
Right, okay, thank you very much, committee members. We have, do we have one final item, which is to receive the appeals?
Chair, I'm really sorry, I must be.
I absolutely
so
understand
sorry.
that. Thank you very much. But let's whiz through the rest of this, committee members, please. Not on my agenda now. Yes, and then later, do we need to say anything about the appeals?
No, Chair.
Thank you. So they're received. So date and time of next meeting is
2 p.m. 20th of January.
2 p.m. 20th of January. Thank you very much and Merry Christmas. Oh no, see you all on Thursday.